If you're someone that has a stabilizing brace on your firearm, you're going to want to stay tuned and watch this video because it will have a direct effect on you what the ATF has come out with their new ruling. So the ATF is at it again and trying to take your constitutional rights away. If you've been following the firearms community, you may have known that the ATF has been in the process of redefining what a firearm is with a pistol brace or a stabilizing brace. And they just came out with their final ruling on what they consider a firearm and what definition that it's going to meet if you have a stabilizing brace, depending on your length of barrel. And the scary thing is that this will affect millions of Americans and basically make them felons overnight once this goes into effect. So if you don't know what a stabilizing brace is it was basically a brace that was developed for a veteran that could not stabilize or hold a firearm. So a company made this brace that attached where the buttstock would normally, where you would shoulder a rifle. They changed that out for this brace, and it would basically wrap around the arm or contour to it, and then he was able to stabilize the firearm with that brace attached to his arm. And then those became kind of popular, especially with people with disabilities. They were able to stabilize rifles when they normally couldn't with whatever disability they had. And the ATF even said that these were legal. They would come with letters from the ATF, and they've become very popular, and millions of Americans now own these stabilizing braces. So it's definitely going to affect you if you have it on a firearm that has a barrel length of less than 16 inches, which a lot of people mostly do. So as of now, there's a few different classifications and where this stabilizing brace comes into effect. So normally, if you have a firearm that has a barrel of 16 inches or longer, no matter what stock you have on there, whether a solid stock for shouldering or a stabilizing brace, 16 inches or longer is considered a rifle. No issues. Don't have to submit any additional paperwork with the ATF. Now, if you have a firearm with a barrel that is shorter than 16 inches, there are two classifications right now that would fall under either a short barrel rifle or a pistol. So for a short barrel rifle, you can have a solid stock on there meant to be shouldered, but you have to register that firearm with the ATF through the National Firearms Act. You fill out some paperwork, pay a $200 tax stamp, and then that is set up as your short barreled rifle or SBR, and you're good to go, but it is registered with the government. Now, the other classification is a pistol. So what a pistol setup has been is a firearm with a less than 16-inch barrel length with a stabilizing brace on the end. Now, with that setup, the ATF basically says you can't use the stabilizing brace to primarily shoulder that firearm with a barrel length less than 16 inches. But as long as you don't have it shouldered or use it as intended as a brace, then it's set up as a pistol, and you don't have to register it as an SBR. You just can't make any modifications to the stabilizing brace in any way, or else that could have affected the way it was classified. But that's pretty much what a lot of people were doing now, is putting stabilizing braces on, say, AR-15s with short barrel lengths and classifying them as pistols. And when you buy it from a dealer, you just fill out the form 4473, and it's put down as a pistol instead of a rifle. And then you don't have to go through the NFA Act as long as you have the stabilizing brace on there. Now, if you put a solid brace on there after the fact, then that turns it into technically a short-barreled rifle that has to go through the NFA Act. So really, this ruling is going to affect the people that have a stabilizing brace on a firearm with a barrel length less than 16 inches. So this isn't actually going to make a ban or regulate the actual stabilizing brace itself, just how you have it mounted to your firearm depending on the length of the barrel. So there's a lot to this ruling. It is pages and pages, and if you've ever read anything from the ATF, it is really hard to deconstruct and understand because they are vague on a lot of stuff, and it makes you scratch your head on a lot of it. So I'm going to post a link down below in the description to this actual ruling, and you can read through it. There's a lot of areas with FAQs and how this is going to affect depending on the firearm that you have it attached to. So here's the ruling on the website that the ATF actually posted today, which is January 13th. And the rule outlines the factors the ATF would consider when evaluating firearms that are equipped with these stabilizing braces and determine whether that they are considered a rifle or short-barreled rifle under the Gun Control Act of 1968, which then brought on the National Firearms Act. So, and they do say here that it does not affect the stabilizing braces themselves, But basically, whether you have it on a firearm that's 16 inches or over or less, it's going to change the way that they categorize that firearm. So then they go and say who's affected by this rule. First bullet point right there, unlicensed possessors. Who is that? Basically, anybody that has a stabilizing brace on a firearm with a barrel less than 16 inches. You are now going to be considered an unlicensed possessor and basically considered a felon under the ATF. It goes into some things with FFLs or government entities. We're not going to talk about that since we're basically going to be talking about people that actually have these in hand and how it's going to affect you and really what you need to do. And here are all the links that they have with the FAQs and some more information on this. The final rules amended definition of rifle clarifies that the term designed, redesigned, made, or remade and intended to be fired from the shoulder includes a weapon that is equipped with an accessory component or other rearward attachment, example here, stabilizing brace, that provides surface area that allows the weapon to be fired from the shoulder, providing the other factors as listed in the definition indicate that the weapon is designed and intended to be fired from the shoulder. So what they're saying there is basically if you have any attachment on the back of your firearm that could potentially have the surface area for you to shoulder it, then if you have 16 inches or less as the barrel length, you're going to have to register that as a short barrel rifle under the NFA Act, pay the $200 tax stamp, and then the government has a record of it. Whereas before, the ATF said the stabilizing brace, if you had it on there and weren't primarily using it to shoulder, it was fine, no issues. It's a pistol. You don't have to register it under the NFA. So now they've completely backtracked and redacted what they said and making up these ridiculous rules. So do they have a list of specific braces that qualify in making a pistol into a short barrel rifle? No. And then you go in here and say that they basically don't regulate accessories or firearm accessories. So it doesn't matter if you have an SBA 3 brace or whatever manufacturer you have. They're saying that they don't regulate the actual accessory, but they're going to regulate the firearm depending on what barrel length you have. So in their whole ruling, this is what they are considering a short-barreled rifle, which previous, as of, before today was considered a pistol, was here is an AR-15 with a shorter than 16-inch barrel. They had a stabilizing brace on there. As long as this wasn't used to primarily shoulder, this was technically a pistol, and you didn't have to register it with the NFA Act. But now with this new ruling, that firearm, even though you said it was a pistol and have it set up as a pistol, is now an SBR. And they go through and have pictures of different designs. You got the different types of stabilizing braces. But this is what most Americans have set up today as a pistol that they are now going to classify as a short barrel rifle. And again, here is another Palmetto State Armory. A lot of people have these. Stabilizing brace on there is now a short barrel rifle, and you have to pay a $200 tax stamp on this, register it with the NFA, or else you basically become a felon. So in this ruling, they do have a table here that says what you can do depending on your situation. We're going to focus on the top line here that says unlicensed possessors affected by this rule, because this is going to be what, most you and I or anybody that has the previously shown pistols set up that are not going to be SBR. So this is going to be your options of what you can do going forward with this final rule. The first one is replace a short barrel with a barrel that is longer than 16 inches, then turning it into a rifle, and then you're fine. Another option is to remove the brace so that it cannot be reattached. So basically what you're left with is just the buffer tube if you have an AR. So removing that and not having anything else attached, it would still then meet the definition of a pistol and not an SBR if you have that short barrel length on there. But then if you put any accessory on there that has that surface area, they're probably going to make you register that as an SBR. The other option here is to forfeit the firearm to a local ATF office, which this is, out of any of these, I would highly not recommend doing, because you could potentially incriminate yourself by turning in the firearm to the ATF. Last resort, do not do that. Even though they have it on here, you do not want to subject yourself to being incriminated. Just walking up to the ATF, showing that you had this gun that is now considered an SBR setup, that could be incriminating, and who knows what they would do with that. Other option is to destroy the firearm. Don't do that. Don't do that. The other option is to register the firearm on an e-form. And then they have basically a grandfather period where they're not going to charge you the $200 tax stamp. So from day one, from when this rule goes into effect, within 120 days, if you file an e-form, they're going to give you a grace period where they're not going to charge you $200. If you register it or purchase a gun set up in this way, after that 120-day period, then they're going to charge you that $200 tax stamp. So thank you, ATF, for letting us save that $200 by following your registration within 120 days. But if you know anything about e-forms and the ATF trying to get anything within that 120 days is going to be very difficult because they're slow. So as you can see, this is pretty scary and going to affect a lot of people because most people have destabilizing braces on what is now going to be considered a short-barreled rifle. So that is going to cost you $200 because you're probably not going to get within those 120-day period. And then you're also going to be registering your firearm with the government, so then they now know what you have. And I think that is kind of the end game, is they're trying to get as many guns registered as they can by any means. Now, again, as we all know, the ATF does not have the power to make law. They can enforce law, but they do not have the ability to make laws outside of Congress, because any laws should have to go through Congress, get voted on, and then go to the president and then become law. So the fact that they're trying to do this through this rule is definitely unconstitutional. So let's all hope that this will go through a court hearing and be considered unconstitutional, and then the whole thing gets scrapped, kind of like the Trump era bump stock ruling, where the Trump administration banned out of nowhere the bump stocks without voting through Congress, which it was, again, unconstitutional. Thankfully, recently, a court did rule that unconstitutional because, again, you can't just make laws without going through the whole voting process. So let's all hope that a court will get a hold of this and rule this unconstitutional. So what can we, the people, do about this? The main and biggest thing is to not comply with this at all. Obviously, the ATF is not complying with their duties. They're only supposed to enforce the laws, not make the laws. So since they're not actually complying with what they're supposed to do, why should we? So do not comply with this at all. If you own something that you have set up as a pistol that up until now they considered completely legal for you to have, and definitely write to your Congress people and tell them that this is absolute bullshit, that the ATF does not have the power to do this. It's completely unconstitutional. And then let's all hope that a court will also rule this as unconstitutional and it will just go in the trash. And if you guys get some time, click on the link in the description below. That'll take you directly to the ATF's website with this ruling. Again, there are 293 pages for the entire ruling, so it is definitely difficult to go through, but skim through it, kind of see how it will affect you depending on your gun and everything and the options that they give you. And again, don't comply. Write to your Congress people and tell them how ridiculous this is. So another fight that we're going to have to do, but check it out. And if you guys have any questions, let me know down in the comments, but definitely check out the website and the FAQs that will hopefully answer your questions there as well.